We do have a really packed agenda today, so I want to make sure that we get going, starting on our agenda with the first item is hearing from our Executive Director of the Minnesota State Board of Investment, Jill Schertz. We've allocated about 30 minutes for both her presentation and member questions. And so, Ms. Schertz, if you are ready, you can go ahead and begin your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Can you pull the mic a little bit closer to you? Yeah. Maybe.
Great. And if not, I'll shout.
Okay.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I know we have limited time, so I'll move through the formal presentation quickly. I want to make sure I leave enough time for questions. Thank you for having us today. My name is Jill Schertz. I'm the Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer of the Minnesota State Board of Investment. With me today, we have our Deputy Executive Director and our General Counsel, John Muley and Andy Christensen. Moving through the presentation quickly, I do want to spend some time on this first page. We'll begin here, and I'm sure we'll end here because it's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Every decision that we make, every action that we take is framed by two things, our mission and our fiduciary duty. We're very clear about what both of those are. 840,000 Minnesota public employees rely on us to achieve our mission every single day. They entrust us with their retirement security, and in return for that, they actually pay us a very significant part of their weekly salaries. We take this covenant very seriously. It's the only reason that we exist. I'm very pleased to present on the right-hand side of this page our performance. So in connection with this mission and service of this mission, we are pleased to have said we've delivered exceptional performance. Calendar year 2023, 14.6%. Fiscal year 23, 8.9%. And then as you can see across the bottom, every reasonable time period, 3, 5, 10, 20, and 30 years, we have had exceptional performance and exceeded our benchmarks. We don't take that lightly, and I do want to point out that every single performance number that you see on these pages is net of all investment fees and other fees. This return is the actual return that drops to the bottom line for each of our plan members. Next page. I want to spend a second talking about governance. We have a very robust governance structure around the State Board of Investments. On the left-hand side, you can see our board consists of the 4 constitutional members, Governor Tim Walz, the State Auditor, Julie Blaha, Secretary of State Steve Simon, and Attorney General Keith Ellison. This board oversight is augmented by our Investment Advisory Council, which consists of 17 members. 10 of whom are experienced investment professionals who tend to be practitioners in the field, the 3 executive directors of the statewide retirement plans, the Commissioner of Minnesota Management Budget, 2 active members, and 1 retired member appointed by the governor. I'd also point out in terms of resources at the Minnesota State Board of Investment, the board is served by 2 top-tier investment consultants, Aon and Makita. There are also resources to our team within the MSBI staff. Our team consists of 46 dedicated professionals, 36 of whom are investment professionals, 10 of whom are focused on administrative, accounting, financial services, et cetera. We are also, as a staff, supported by, on the private market side, Allborn as our consultant. We're also subject to a very rigorous annual audit. Every year by the Office of the Legislative Auditor. We're very pleased to report, as indicated by this page, that over a very long period of time, we have received the highest form of opinion from the OLA. This annual audit covers every branch of our team and our operations, the OLA dedicates approximately 1,600 auditor hours to this annual function. Turning now to our funds under management. Most people think of us as the combined funds, and we'll spend the rest of the presentation focused on that. But our remit is actually much broader. As of December 31, 2023, or June 30, rather, 2023, we had $134.7 billion of assets. Those assets are spread over a number of functions, obviously the combined funds being the largest at $85.7 billion, but very significant functions and assets associated with state cash, participant-directed programs, non-retirement funds, and our fire relief funds. We'll talk about fire relief funds at the end. Turning now to the combined funds, as you can see on the left-hand side, when we talk about the combined funds, we're talking about the 3 state retirement systems. And you can see in the pie chart on the left how those break down. the largest being PERA, the Public Employees Retirement Association, then the Teachers Retirement Association, and then Minnesota State Retirement System. In service of these members, on the right-hand side, you can see our strategic asset allocation, fixed income, private markets, and public equity. This is a simplistic, of course, representation of our asset allocation. These subcategories are not monolithic, and within each of these, there are a number of different sub-asset classes. Next slide. I want to spend some time talking about performance generally and maybe drilling down a little bit further. When we presented the numbers on the first page, I think a casual observer would say, not only do those look very good, but they seem to be very consistent over time, very smooth. The reality is, and we're going to hit this point a number of different times, what we do, and any investment professional in any setting would realize, and I think Chair Herr, I thank you, you pointed this out to us. Every investment practitioner appreciates that there is no such thing as very smooth, very consistent returns. When you look at the returns year over year, actually there's a tremendous amount of volatility, and it's because of that volatility that it's important that we are patient and consistent long-term investors. Our goal is to make sure that we are providing benefits for the next 100 years, not just the next year or the next 5 years. So as we look over our performance on the left-hand side, you can see on a year-over-year basis, not only do we have great returns, but we will suffer with market downturns, hopefully not as much. But it's our job to be patient and resilient and to wait to get to the other side. If you look at our annualized returns on the right-hand side of the page, they look extremely smooth. Turning to the next page, I do want to take a second to say, what does all this mean? I think it's one thing to say you've got 14.6% return in a calendar year, but how does that translate actually to our beneficiaries, or our plan members, I should say? I think it translates in a very concrete, absolute dollar way that makes a difference. If you think about any fund, there are really three key sources of revenue. One, member contributions. Two, employer contributions. And then the contribution that comes from the investment pool at the SBI. So as we walk through the last 5 years, I do want to highlight that what have these types of returns driven for our plan members? We've increased pension plan assets by $16.9 billion through our investments, with a fiscal year average of $3.4 billion added. We've distributed $14 billion, that's net of contributions. So not even including the contributions you've made over the last 5 years, we've distributed $14.1 billion additional dollars to pay pension plan benefits, with a fiscal year average of $2.82 billion. We've increased non-retirement assets by $1.9 billion, with a fiscal year average of $389 million, and earned $1.486 billion for the state invested treasurer's cash assets, with a fiscal year average of $2.973 million. All of these are the real dollar impacts of this investment program. Next slide. So I want to come back to the question of how do we think about returns year in and year out. Hopefully we've communicated that over a relevant period of times there's been exceptional performance, but the volatility year over year is real. And the reason I highlight this is I think that there would be a tendency to say, well, your investment return is 7%. Look at your annualized returns. Why don't you just call it 10% and call it done? The reason we shoot for 7% as our target, and again, we always try to exceed it, is we are looking for a reasonable and rational number to guide our portfolio to every single year. And if you look at page 9, the year-over-year performance, hopefully you'll see why that's so important. If we shoot too high and underperform, we damage all of the funds. If we pick a reasonable number and construct a portfolio around that reasonable number and then stay patient, we can absolutely deliver exceptional long-term returns. Page 10 and 11, I just want to take a second to look at, again, as you look under the covers of the equity market and the fixed income market, even when there's an exceptionally positive year, what many people don't see is what happens during the year. And this and the next chart really serve to illustrate that. Even in years where you end up with positive, for say 24% return, during that year you were down 10% at some point in time. If you left the market during that moment, you did not stand a chance of recovering. If you can afford to be patient and be a long-term investor with assets you understand well, you will perform for the long term. And again, the next slide is the Bloomberg US Ag, which is the sort of most common representation of the fixed income markets. And I think there's a tendency to think fixed income markets are free from volatility and fairly boring, and most times they are. Certainly not the case recently. But as you look over time even, in years where there's positive performance, the dots below the line tell you that sometime during the year, you experienced some sort of drawdown. Again, patience is the key for our line of work. And occasionally we have somebody ask us, wouldn't it be better if we simply defeased all of our obligations and just invested in fixed income alone? And I think that there are some corporations that do that and do it well. Defined benefit pension plans are different, though, than corporations. And I think we've demonstrated over a long period of time that this particular approach to investing is successful. And as we look at the growth of a dollar, comparing just investing in fixed income alone versus a diversified portfolio that we have, you can see at the end point the very large difference in where you end up, one plan versus the other. And I want to end by highlighting something that Senator Rasmussen has played a key role in, and he's certainly done a great job keeping it front of mind for us. And we want to thank the LCPR staff, who's dedicated a tremendous amount of time to the question of volunteer fire relief funds participating in the State Board of Investment program. As a result of those efforts over a number of years, we're now very proud to say that there are 236 Minnesota volunteer fire relief plans that are invested in the statewide volunteer fire account. There are 165 Minnesota volunteer fire relief plans that use some form of our investment options for assets totaling almost $400 million. At the end of the day, when we look at the eligible fire relief plans, eligible that is to invest with us, we now touch approximately 80% of those funds. Wow. Why is that important? We're very proud of the dedicated team that we have. We exist for one mission only, as we've said, that's to serve our stakeholders, our members. And these funds benefit significantly from not only our fiduciary oversight, but our scale. We actually are a very low-cost provider of these investment services, and we think that that is a benefit to each and every fire relief fund. With that, I want to come back and we'll leave on here our mission slide because, again, I think that's the beginning, middle, and end. But I also want to talk about some of the things we're excited about as an organization. We have been working on making sure that we have organizational alignment around our key objectives. That's been going on for a while. I think I reported the last time I was here that we spent a significant amount of time making sure that we have a robust leadership structure, that we have a number of senior professionals who are not only engaged, but fully authorized to make important decisions at the SBI. We've been hiring key personnel to make sure that we have critical redundancies so that we can better serve you. We're also building our junior team of analysts. And I think that's important because at the end of my time at the SBI, I feel very confident that my replacement will be already on board and will be fully aligned with the mission of the SBI. We're also engaged in an asset allocation study that we expect to deliver by the end of this calendar year. Not only is that an important study to make sure that we've got our target allocations up to date, but there are also a number of ancillary things that come out of that. We'll update our benchmarks, we'll update our reporting and our disclosures. We'll also take that opportunity to update our systems that are in place. So all of these, I think, are efforts that are important to have a continually successful, thriving organization that's solely focused on serving our plan members. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Executive Director Schertz. Members, any questions for Executive Director Schertz or her team? Vice Chair Friends.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Ms. Schertz. I just want to say on the record, what an outstanding presentation you just made. People ask questions, what's going on with our investment dollars, and not only putting together returns that are above average. I'm no math teacher, but I know that much, but also the way you lay it out for people to look at. I just want to commend you and all your staff for coming here and giving us this report. I think it shows openness and transparency, and I hope that anyone who has questions about the SBI will take a quick look at the report you provided for us. Might get some helpful information in there. Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Ms. Schertz.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to jump on the Mutual Admiration Society bandwagon here this morning as well. I do appreciate the work that the SBI has done. This is my 14th year in the legislature. I think it's my 12th year on the Pension Commission. I don't think it was on my first term, but prior to Ms. Schertz's tenure, we had Mansco Perry, and prior to Mansco, we had Howard Baker. And those folks have left her some very big shoes to fill, and she has done a great job. And we were very fortunate to be able to watch her work at the St. Paul Teachers Plan before she came into this role. And very seldom do you have that opportunity to watch someone up close where this commission has jurisdiction over the St. Paul Teachers Association funds as well, and be able to see the job she has done and how she was able to stabilize that plan. And we were able to leverage her into the role of the director. So thank you for that. I will ask you, as we come to the twilight of this biennium and this commission's work for this time around, is there anything that this commission should be doing, any state laws, any tools, anything that we should be putting in place or considering in the next cycle to be able to help you to do your job more effectively?
Ms. Schertz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative O'Driscoll, thank you for your comments and for your questions. I think that in terms of the State Board of Investment, we are, as I look across the country, incredibly lucky. We have a supportive legislature, we have a supportive board. You hold us accountable, but I think you've left a framework where we have the freedom to operate. And that, I don't think there's anything that's more important than that. You've also given us permission to fully staff in a way that's critically important. We appreciate that. You ask hard questions, but you're great listeners as well. I think that we will likely come back to you with slight modifications to minor statutes, but I don't see any major overhaul. I think the most important thing that this body could continue to do, and I've been incredibly impressed over my 10 years here that I have seen, while obviously there are politics, this body has been distinctly apolitical. That is the single most important thing for success for the Minnesota State Board of Investments, and we're very grateful.
Thank you, Ms. Schertz. Representative O'Driscoll, then I'll go to Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's good to hear that you don't think that there are major structural issues and that we're in a maintenance mode. That's very helpful. And I do believe that your point of we ask hard questions, you also give us challenges to work on as well. It's not just a one-way street to be able to help do your job. And that goes not only to your job in the SBI, but it goes to the individual plans as well. This commission, since I have been here, and with Senator Pappas and I having been chairs and vice chairs in the past, we've hangled and wrangled on different kinds of things, but we've always found a way to be able to get the vast majority of the members of the legislature in the House and the Senate to support this, because this isn't a Democrat and Republican issue. This is taking care of people who were in the employ of the people in the state of Minnesota and keeping those promises to the best of our ability. So, again, that's my time on the Mutual Admiration Society train. I see we're pulling to the station, so someone else can take the helm.
Thank you. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just, if we look at page 2 here in the report, I think we might forget how remarkable it is to have this kind of outperformance over such a long period of time, and how robust the outperformance has been over these different periods. And while, 10, 20 basis points, 0.5% might not seem like a lot, what that results in over time is billions and billions of dollars more for Minnesota state workers, for Minnesota teachers, for our county and city employees. And so I really commend the State Board of Investment over not just the last few years, but over decades, for continuing to outperform the market and to find ways to get the strongest return on investment possible for the members that they serve. And I did just want to underscore a comment that Director Schertz made, which is how important it's been that this commission keep politics out of the work of the State Board of Investment, and we allow them to focus on their core mission of serving their members, Minnesota pensioners, actives, and retirees. And I just think it's important to underscore when we look at this success that we don't mess it up, and that we let them to continue to do their work. And I appreciate the bipartisan consensus on this commission to keep politics out of the work of the SBI.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, as I add my voice to the Mutual Admiration Society here. Also, I think that you also have a great staff. that has supported the executive director over, many decades. And to have that consistently high-quality staff also, I commend you on that and the previous directors of SBI. But thank you for choosing, all of you for choosing, those who aren't native Minnesotans, for choosing Minnesota for your home.
Thank you, and I will sort of wrap this up by just stating that I think there's something to be said about when you exceed performance year after year, and I think that sometimes, and I see this in other aspects of the work that we do here at the legislature, that when something seems to be going well, we have a hard time sort of centering the fact that that's not the norm. And so I would love to see in the future, maybe it's just some comparison information about, I know we're looking at like benchmarks that are, global benchmarks, but it would be great to just see how pension plans maybe compare across different states and what that might look like, because I think that gives people better perspective of really understanding what we are doing is actually above and beyond, and that is not the norm. And so that would be helpful, I think, to just recenter us in this work going into the future. So thank you so much for the presentation today, and we will be reaching out to you if there's any further questions or comments that we may have. So thank you, Ms. Schertz.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, we do have a quorum now, so I'm going to have us go back to item 1, which is our meeting minutes. Senator Westland, have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
I have, Madam Chair, and I would like to move approval of the April 8th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Thank you. Senator Westland moves approval of the April 8th, 2024 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails, and the minutes are adopted. Up next is, see here. Up next is an item I guess we're doing an informational for Senate File 1386 from Senator McEwen. Because Senator McEwen is not a member of the commission, I will move that Senate File 1386 be laid over. Senator McEwen, would you like to provide opening comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Chair Herr and members of the commission, or of the committee today. I'm very pleased and grateful today to have the opportunity to present to you as part of an informational hearing, Senate File 1386. This file would restore augmentation for deferred members of our pension plans. As you know, 6 years ago, in 2018, the Omnibus Pensions Bill removed this benefit from our state pension plans. Augmentation was the practice of providing a fixed benefit, annual benefit, to retirement pensions accounts of those who have left state service, otherwise referred to as deferred members, until they begin drawing on their pension account. When this benefit was removed by the legislature in 2018, a constituent of mine who had been laid off noticed a sharp decline in his expected retirement benefits. He was, just as a matter of record, laid off through no fault of his own. But when the augmentation benefit was repealed by the legislature, his expected monthly payout was almost cut in half. There are about, by our research and staff account, about 118,000 pension members whose accounts are deferred because of leaving state service due to layoffs or personal choice. Some members, including my constituent, had their retirement plans upended by the sharp decline in their defined benefit statements following the enactment of the 2018 pensions bill. Thank you very much, Chair Herr, for this informational hearing and for commissioning an actuarial study to give us an idea of the potential cost of this measure. Thank you very much to the staff who have worked now, some of them, a couple of them for years, to help us understand the problem that this constituent has been facing and to put together some language that could address it. And finally, thank you very much, Commission members, for helping us to begin and to start this conversation. Here with me today, remotely, I do have my constituent, Mr. Michael Berg, who has been working since this happened, first with former Representative Jen Schultz and now with my office for a number of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. And before we go to your testifiers, I will have Deputy Director Sean Kelly walk us through the bill.
Thank you, Chair Herr. I will leave my comments fairly brief here, and we'll just do a quick section-by-section walkthrough of the bill. Section 1 restores the augmentation of deferred annuities at the rate of 2% for members of the MSRS General and Correctional Plans who left public employment before January 1st, 2019. Section 2 restores the augmentation of deferred annuities at the rate of 2% for members of the MSRS State Patrol Plan who left public employment before January 1st, 2019. Section 3 restores the augmentation of deferred annuities at the rate of 1% for members of PERA who left public employment before January 1st, 2019. I will note that not all members of PERA were receiving augmentation. In 2018, a deferred member's pension benefit was augmented only if the member terminated service before January 1st, 2012. Section 4 restores the augmentation of deferred annuities at the rate of 2% for members of TRA. And Section 5 restores augmentation at the rate of 2% for members of St. Paul teachers. Section 6 has 4 subdivisions, one for each retirement system. Section 6 requires that the executive directors of each retirement system to recalculate the annuity of any retired member who started to receive a pension on or after January 1st, 2019 for members of MSRS and PERA, or July 1st, 2019 for TRA and St. Paul teachers, whose monthly benefit would have been larger had this bill been in effect by those dates as applicable. The executive director must adjust the member's annuity amount to reflect the member's increased benefit for future payments and offer a lump sum distribution to the member. This bill is effective the day following final enactment. And provided in your materials is a cost estimate from the Commission's actuary, VIA Actuarial Solutions, on the cost of the bill to the MSRS General Plan, and they will be providing a walkthrough of the estimate in more detail. Thank you, Chair Herr. That concludes my review.
Thank you, Deputy Director Kelly. And maybe for just members who might not be aware, or people watching, can you just explain what augmentation is? Or will Mr. Schulte be doing that?
Of course, Chair Herr. Yes, augmentation is an automatic increase of the retirement annuity accrued by a member who left public employment but is yet to begin taking their pension benefit. A fixed percent each year.
Thank you, Deputy Director Kelly. We will just have Mr. Schulte come up to the testifier table and just walk through the cost of this, and then we'll go through the other testifiers who have signed up. Thank you, Mr. Schulte, and just identify yourself for the record and begin.
Mark Schulte, Consulting Actuary at VIA Actuarial Solutions. Chair Herr, just to walk through the exhibit briefly, and also to, before I do, to follow up on Mr. Kelly's comments, I like to think of augmentation as pre-retirement COLA. We've talked a lot about post-retirement cost of living adjustments, COLAs, and augmentation's kind of like a pre-retirement COLA, essentially inflation protection between termination and when you eventually retire. In the exhibit we put together, we were asked to estimate the cost to MSRS General if augmentation was restored for participants who had terminated prior to January 1, 2019. Top line, row 1, the actuarial accrued liability, we estimate it would increase by about $210 million for that group of participants. So that would be an immediate increase in the plan's accrued liability because the benefit amounts would increase for all of those members. Line item 6, we see the funded ratio would decrease by about 1.12%. Then, in addition to the immediate effect on the unfunded liability, that has to be paid down over time per state statute. So that would affect the contribution sufficiency or deficiency, which is in line item number 9. Currently at the June 30, 2023 actuarial evaluation, the fund had a contribution sufficiency of 3.19%, and we estimate that would drop to about 2.88%, so a decrease of about 31 basis points. If we apply that to the annual payroll, which is approximately $3.8 billion, we see that that's about $11.8 million a year in additional cost. The final piece to the estimates was looking at anybody who had terminated prior to 2019, but had subsequently started their benefit. What could they have received if augmentation had been in place? and calculate sort of the lump sum value of that. And that's line item 11, about $4.6 million if we trued things up June 30, 2024. If it's delayed, that gets bigger because then the members would be entitled to additional augmentation that they have missed out on.
Thank you,
Went through
Mr.
that
Schulte.
quickly. Any questions, I guess?
Any questions for Mr. Schulte? Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Mr. Schulte. The numbers that you went through, is that just for MSRS, and that doesn't include the other statewide plans, is that correct?
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, Senator Rasmussen, that's correct. That's just for MSRS General.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Schulte? I have a quick question too. So this $4.6 million, that is if this is restored for all participants within, who are in MSRS, or is this just for the one individual who brought the bill forward? Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, that's just for, that is for the entire group of members who terminated prior to 2019 but have retired since then.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Representative O'Driscoll.
Just to follow up on your question, Madam Chair, so we talk about MSRS, that's MSRS General Corrections and State Patrol, so everything that's under the umbrella of MSRS, or is it just MSRS General?
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, Representative O'Driscoll, the estimate we did is just for MSRS General. So this would have to be done on a plan-by-plan basis for all the plans affected by the legislation to get the total cost of what it would do.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Schulte, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you are the person who probably has got the most familiarity in the microphone at this time. If we were to put that over not only MSRS and the sub-plans that are there, and TRA and St. Paul teachers and TRA, that's gonna be a pretty big sizable number. And I also noticed that in section 6, it also talks about going back over the last 6 years and recalculating, paying back employees for not receiving augmentation who have been retired. That's gonna be one supersized number, is it not?
Mr. Schulte, do you have an estimate of what that could be potentially, or would that be too much to ask on the spot here?
Chair Herr, Representative O'Driscoll, it's too much to ask on the spot. I would say it would be multiples of what we've estimated just because there are multiple plans involved.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Mr. Schulte. When we look across other states and public pension plans in general, how common is augmentation? Do most public pension plans have augmentation? Do most of them not have it? Just wondering if you could give us a sense when we look across other states.
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, Senator Rasmussen, augmentation on annuity benefits is very uncommon. To my knowledge, Minnesota is the only statewide fund that has or had augmentation on pension benefits. I believe South Dakota may have some variation on it for a lower level of benefits, but it's very uncommon, if at all.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies if you already mentioned this. I can't exactly tell here from the bill summary. Does this, would this legislation also then impact members of TRA?
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, Representative Nelson, my understanding is yes, that it would affect all the statewide funds.
And then.
Senator Nelson.
Yep. And then I assume the cost estimate, the revenue estimate includes that full picture as well. So it restores augmentation to pre-2018 omnibus pensions bill. Is that correct?
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Herr, Senator Nelson, that is not correct. No, the estimate we've done is only for MSRS General, so all the other funds would require additional calculations to get the total number.
Senator Nelson, any follow-up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then one final question as I'm reading this, just in application. I think this applies to those who have left MSRS, but have not yet begun drawing their pension, but I thought I also read a phrase, but are no longer in public service. There's lots of different types of public service, and I'm curious how that impacts one who has left MSRS and is in a different form of public service, maybe in the legislature where we don't have a pension.
Mr. Schulte.
Chair Her, Senator Nelson. I'm not familiar with how it would impact somebody who has returned to employment in another system. What we measured was just the cost for participants who are currently terminated with a deferred vested benefit and what that augmentation cost would be to the fund for MSRS General. And then also anybody who had terminated with a deferred benefit prior to 2019 and had commenced benefits since then, what the additional cost to their pension benefit would be. But it does not affect necessarily a return to work participant in any of our calculations so far.
Madam Chair?
Senator Nelson.
Last question, this might be for staff then. So I am curious about this, it's actually on page 2 in the staff document. It mentions that in describing augmentation and what this bill is addressing, we're talking about how it applies to a member who's no longer working in public employment but has not begun to take their pension benefit. My question is, I think it was 2019, for those members who have stopped their work in that pension benefit category, MSRS, but are still in some form of public service. How does this potential augmentation change work for people who are still in public service but not necessarily in MSRS?
Director Lancheski or Deputy Director Kelly, either one of you?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Senator and Chair Her. So augmentation is not currently happening, right?
Correct.
But for those that were receiving it,
Right.
the issue was whether you had left really your current employment. When you leave employment, then your benefit ceases to grow at MSRS General. And so then the trade-off is you then would have received augmentation at a rate of 2% times your benefit
Yes.
every year. So it's not necessarily public service, it's leaving the job that you were in and in MSRS General.
Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. The last part, I understood how augmentation works, but I wasn't quite sure how. So it would not be accurate to say they're no longer working in public employment. That's just a phrase that kind of made me wonder. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. We'll go to the other two testifiers. Mr. Schulte, if you just want to stay close by, just in case after the other two testifiers are done. The next person I have up here is Dan Hannon, former Minnesota Pollution Control Agency employee and MSRS stakeholder. If you could make your way up to the table. If you could state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is Dan Hannon.
Go ahead and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me to present this morning. I'll be brief. My name is Dan Hannon, and I've served the state of Minnesota from 1990 to 2000 while working at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. During that time, I was represented by the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, or MAPE. I found that my 10 years with the MPCA to be rewarding and responsible for shaping my career as an environmental health and safety professional. To this day, I serve in that capacity as safety director for a small engineering firm here in St. Paul. Since leaving state service in 2000, I've seen my pension benefit reduced by 50%. These cuts were communicated only after the fact with the receipt of my annual MSRS statement. As a deferred member, I had no lines of communication and no voice to describe my opposition in advance of the pension cuts. Decisions in my career path were made in part based on my pension benefit value in 2000. Had I known this would be the outcome, I would have left state service much sooner. As it was, I regularly would make calculations of my retirement income necessary to support the desired lifestyle of my wife and myself. The full pension benefit was a big factor in my retirement financial planning. Needless to say, with the cost of living on the rise, especially for healthcare, This 50% reduction hurts, and it hurts a lot. Reinstating augmentation to restore my pension benefit will help ensure the quality of my life for that and my wife, and that I look forward to in the future. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Dan Hannon.
Thank you, Mr. Hannon. Our next testifier is Michael Berg, former U of M and UMD employee, current Duluth School District employee, and they are with us remotely.
Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mike Berg. I'm a former U of M, UMD employee, current Duluth Schools employee. I was hired at age 24 by the U of M to coordinate an entire department move of 200 faculty and staff into Fairview Hospital. This was a huge undertaking that took years to complete. At age 27, I got promoted to work at UMD in my hometown of Duluth. I was raised here, family was here. This was my dream job. We all worked very hard to put students first. We often skipped lunches, breaks, stayed late, even worked some weekends without pay. At age 30, my job appeared to be secure. I set down roots, bought land to build a family home. Even though over the years we had to tighten our belts with 2 strikes and several unpaid furlough days because of budget cuts. Then a nightmare happened at age 40. My dreams were destroyed. I was laid off after 15 years of dedicated service. My plans to build a family home ended. My paychecks were cut in half with unemployment. My career was gone. Everything I worked for, gone. Trying to find a job at age 40 in 2012 was very hard. Competing with college grads who were cheaper to hire and no responsibilities, a challenge I wish no one. The layoff had one saving grace, knowing my MSRS retirement was secure, something I never thought could be taken away from me. However, at age 46, 22 years from when I started, half my retirement was stolen from me. Augmentation was a part of our wages that I worked so hard for. I gave the state of Minnesota 15 of the best working years of my life. I feel the same anger, frustration, and betrayal today as I did years ago. Now at age 51, I can never recoup the retirement I lost. The 2018 bill was sold on the premise that people left for greener pastures. Many of us did not. We are loyal to Minnesota. This commission cannot restore everything that layoffs cost us, but you can restore our future. We kept Minnesota strong. Please keep us strong to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Members, we can open up the discussion on this particular bill. If you have any questions, please just Senator Pappas.
Madam Chair, I would just like to ask Mr. Kelly, I just asked him a question privately about when we eliminated augmentation in 2018, it was not retroactive, and so people were still getting augmentation up until that date, and maybe Mr. Kelly could clarify that.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Yes, at the time of the 2018 pension bill, augmentation was eliminated prospectively in 2019 on January, after January 1st for MSRS and PERA plans, and then July 1st for TRA and St. Paul teachers.
And
Senator Pappas.
And Madam Chair, how much was the augmentation then prior to 2018?
Mr. Kelly.
At the rates indicated in the bill, it's 2% for members of MSRS, TRA, and St. Paul teachers, and it was 1% for PERA plans. Prior to 2010, it was higher, and then reduced at to those rates of 2 or 1%, respectively.
Senator Pappas.
Madam Chair, Mr. Kelly, at one point it was 5%, correct?
Mr. Kelly.
That is correct.
Further discussion. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the conversation on augmentation today, and I think it's important for the commission too to understand the history behind it. While there's lots of benefits that I think we would love to invest dollars in, my concern with looking at reinstating augmentation is a couple-fold. One is, I think we heard from Mr. Schulte earlier today that it's expensive, and it'd be very expensive benefit to add back into our pension plans. And then especially when we're faced with limited resources and a lot of demands across our pension plans, this is an expensive benefit that by definition only goes to individuals who are not in service to the state currently. And so I think that's why when we look across other states, we don't see augmentation as a benefit that's included in statewide pension plans. And so I appreciate the conversation today, but I think if we're looking at ways to try to attract and retain state employees, I don't think adding back augmentation would best fit that goal.
Any further discussion? Senator McEwen, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for the discussion today. I appreciate very much this opportunity for my constituent and this group of people who were negatively affected by the changes made in 2018 to their pensions heard. And I want to just to make sure that people understand that that what the bill would do would not restore augmentation into the future going forward, but would try to make whole this class of people who had this expectation. They had been receiving the sort of statement of what their monthly benefit was expected to be upon their retirement. They made their plans with their families, decisions about purchasing homes, decisions about their employment, decisions about having children, all those life decisions. And these, as you heard from these two testifiers today, all of a sudden, after giving those years of service to the state and having that be a benefit that they felt that they could count on, saw that benefit, that expectation slashed by half. So it really is a violation in terms of, they entered into a contract with the state with the expectation that this was a benefit that they would receive. They were receiving these statements, and they made those plans based on what they were receiving from us. And then the changes that were made really threw everything on its head, and it pulled the rug out from under them. So what I understand that this is an expensive prospect, something that would cost a real amount of money to make these people whole. But when we made these changes in 2018, when you look at these numbers and see how much it costs, that's the cost that we actually asked that group of people to incur for the rest of the pension plan and the health of it. And I understand the need for those changes in 2018 and the need to go forward with a different way. But I hope as we go forward, we can continue this discussion. If anyone else has on the committee, Madam Chair has been very gracious with her time and the staff's time. But if anybody has any ideas toward making this class of people whole or taking some steps to try to correct this injustice, I'm all ears, and I'm looking for ways that we could do this. And we hope the bill can help us begin that discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator McEwen, and thank you for your openness and willingness to work and find ways to try to address this issue. You have been a strong champion and advocate for this. I just want to say thank you for that. I will renew my motion that Senate File 1386 be laid over, and the bill is laid over.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is a resolution related to special legislation. This resolution came about because most special legislation is unconstitutional. Minnesota Constitutional Article 12, Section 1, in all cases when a general law can be made applicable, a special law shall not be enacted. And this was particularly important to me because as I've been on the commission for, this is my 6th year, I have seen individuals have legislators bring specific bills to address an individual's situation, and I often wondered why that was happening. And I thought about just within the system of like who has access, who has this sort of like the privilege of being able to have access and then to have the time to actually pursue something specifically to themselves. And as I dug into this issue, really to understand that there are some systems-wide changes that we can make that actually addresses some of these issues. And I thank the commission this year for fortifying that language within our statutes in order to allow plans to be able to do that. And so I just wanted to maybe share that here, language in House File 5040 provides further guidance to plans on correcting errors that would, where we've had special legislation brought forward, and the will of the commission is important for guidance and preference. They show the pension plans, and so language has existed in statute, and that what we want to do is ensure that we have the resolution in place to direct our plans in being able to make these changes. And I think that where we find that when our plans or the employers, where we have made an error in someone's particular account, that we just take the liberty of fixing that instead of having special legislation brought forward. So with that, I'm going to ask Director Linczewski to walk us through the memo and the special legislation and the resolution, which is coded LCPR 24-R1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be very brief because we have quite a full agenda still to get through. I'll just note that the IRS self-correction program has been around for years and years. And in going through some of the special legislation that we have prepared for legislators over the years, and many that also were then introduced and some enacted, it appeared that the IRS program could have allowed the directors to fix the error. There are statutes, however, that were interfering with what they believed they could do because they limited the amount of time available to fix the error. So part of what we put into the 2024 bill this year is an allowance for them to fix it, notwithstanding some time limit in another statute. So the hope is that with this self-correction in the statutes, which it has been since 2018, but now it's being supplemented, that we will see less special legislation requests being made to legislators. Hopefully the directors will go ahead and correct these errors as they arise. I think the resolution then directs the directors to go ahead and use the self-correction program whenever they can, and then also ask them to educate their boards. One of the things that we often see as we watch the board meetings is the boards will say, I really wish we could fix this problem. This was a staff error, for instance. I wish we could fix it, but we can't. Our hands are tied. Go to the legislature. They can help you out. So we're hoping that with the directive in the resolution, the directors then will be able to educate their boards that maybe isn't the best course of action, and hopefully move forward with correction themselves. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Director Linczewski, and I will move to adopt the resolution coded LCPR 24-R1 as presented. Members, discussion to the motion. Representative Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand this. It sounds like a very positive step forward. I have one question, though. It seems to me that it's important that perhaps at the end, there be at the end of the year, that perhaps the commission receive a report about the number and the cost and the brief details about each of these corrections. I did not see that in the resolution. Did I miss that? Kind of a final report to the commission each year?
Senator Nelson, and we do, it's not in the resolution, but it is in the language that we, in our House File 5040. So it does state that, I think it was Representative O'Driscoll that suggested that we add in reporting back to the commission as to the changes that were made that year. So,
Thank you.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make sure that I tie all the loose ends together on this. We had the special legislation issues quite frequently with the Minnesota State program, and we've actually dealt with that in the same legislation you're referring to. And there's a funding mechanism in there to deal with that. And through the work of Director Linczewski, she has also brought forward the IRS corrections so that our state statutes would be in line with what the federal law allows to happen. What I see this as is almost the third leg of the stool to be able to authorize and to underscore that the legislature wants the plans to deal with these things under the code, the IRS code, and not necessarily bring those to the legislature. The question that I have is if someone works with the plan and doesn't feel that they're getting the answer that they want, or they view it differently, or whatever the case may be, is there an appeal process still to go to their elected officials and bring it forward, or how is that going to change an individual's ability to be able to work with their elected officials to try to seek relief?
Director Linczewski, do you have a response to that? Or is that something we might need to work out next session?
Yeah, Representative Chair, I think you know the answer. I think we'll see them. We will keep seeing them. there's precedent. If the director decides that she or he is not able to correct, for whatever reason, and the boards back that up, the Board of Trustees or Board of Directors back that up, then the only other alternative are the two that I mentioned, which is going to court. The Court of Appeals is the place you can go when you've been denied on your appeal at the board level. The other is to come to the legislature and ask for special legislation.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Director Lencheski for that explanation. And the reason I ask that is it's always not necessarily an individual basis that we're seeing these things. It's on a class of people, and that's what this Minnesota State situation was. It's an entire class of people, and that could be traveling under the radar without the ability of the legislature to have full knowledge of what's going on. And that's why we included that annual reporting, so that this commission could see and then ask further questions about the who, what, where, when, why, and how of these kinds of things. And so I do support the process, things that can be taken care of as quickly, as easily as possible, administratively as possible. But, maybe that's 90% of the things. We're still gonna see 10% of those issues, and many of those may be class-related issues instead of an individual discrepancy-related issue. Just kind of from my corner of the world here.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the resolution coded LCPR 24-R1 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion prevails and the resolution coded LCPR 24-R1 is adopted. Our next item of business is to discuss PERA General Plan positions that are public safety related, the possible next steps that may have going into the future. This legislative session, multiple bills were introduced that directly addressed enhanced pension benefits for groups such as 911 telecommunicators, probation and parole officers, and county child support agents. It's likely that as these conversations advance over interim and into the next year, that different employee groups will become considered as well. The legislation this session included House File 4796, which is the Representative Wogamont bill with Senator Seeberger, Senate File 4958, and another Wogamont bill, House File 3675, with Senator Kupak, Senate File 3822. Most of the items will center in hearing from the affected parties in this discussion, namely PERA, employees, individuals and groups, and employers. I will note that we have multiple items of submitted testimony for this particular item on our agenda, and we will be putting those forward. There's a handful of written testimony, and so as that goes by, please take a look at that. I will just add really quickly that as we are seeing the work of public employees become more and more demanding in circumstances in which they work, we are hearing more from the different groups of employees. And I want just to sort of acknowledge the fact that in all sectors of public employee work, it has become more difficult. Whether you are a teacher who is trying to get students caught up from years of remote schooling because of the pandemic and the environment in which we are operating, whether it is our 911 operators who are actually being asked to do more and the stress of their jobs, whether it is asking people to go into homes of individuals, whether they have in not having the backup that they may potentially need going into situations that could be dangerous, that all of our state employees' jobs are getting harder and working until 65 or whatever the normal retirement age is more difficult. And so understand that this might be a long-term process that we are looking at to sort of understand how people's jobs are changing and what we may have to consider going into the future. And so with that, I want to be able to get through our testifiers today. We have about 30 minutes to make sure we get through everything, and so if our testifiers could be succinct and brief, we would be so greatly appreciated. The first person that I do have on our list of testifiers is Doug Anderson, Executive Director of PERA. On deck is Darlene Panconi, Washington County Sheriff's Office. And if Darlene, if you could come up to the testifiers table too, and that way we can just kind of switch people out to make the process go a little bit faster. Mr. Anderson, if you could identify yourself for the record and begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commission members. I'm Doug Anderson, Executive Director for PERA. PERA's board does support an actuarial study to consider a new plan. The board asked our retained actuary, GRS, to provide the scope of services and an estimated fee range for the study. Their scope of services included relying on the legislature to define the group, applying the correctional plan benefit structure as a starting point, and the study did include looking at a few alternatives if it's desired to look at different plan provisions. The study includes developing a set of assumptions unique to this group and looking at different alternative assumptions, so it gives a sense of the sensitivity of cost analysis based on different assumption sets. The study also includes the determination of the withdrawal liability, which is the potential cost to the general plan if members leave the general plan and go to a new plan. And that's a benefit to make sure that it's a benefit to all members to make sure that that cost is assessed and ultimately paid for if there is a process to proceed with a new plan. And then they would do a report to summarize their findings. So PERA believes that the scope of the proposed study is appropriate and very critical to better estimate the costs of any potential benefit changes to this group.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Questions?
Up next is Ms. Panconi, and then on deck is Seth Justice Loeffler Kemp, 911 dispatcher, St. Louis County, ASME Local 66. If you can also make your way, Mr. Loeffler Kemp. Thank you. Ms. Panconi, if you can identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Darlene Panconi, and I serve as the Emergency Communications Response Center Manager at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Residing in Woodbury, I am a constituent of Commission Member Representative Chaw's District 47B. And I'd like to also just mention I've adopted Senator Seeberger, who represents Washington County as well and adjacent to where I live in Woodbury. With over 30 years in 911 communications, including more than 2 decades in supervisory roles, I bring a depth of experience to the discussion on the stress, retention challenges, and age-related considerations in our 911 professions. It was my privilege to chair the 911 Telecommunicator Pension Benefits Working Group from July 2021 to January of 2022. Our findings underscore the need for 911 telecommunicators to receive pension benefits commensurate with other public safety professionals as outlined in various state statutes, specifically statutes under the Labor and Industry Chapter 179, Workers' Compensation Chapter 176, and the PERA Chapter 353, all supporting recognizing 911 telecommunicators as essential employees who deserve special consideration. The key points from our report are as follows. Essential role. 911 telecommunicators are crucial for public safety, akin to law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, and correctional officers, all of whom benefit from enhanced pension plans. It is only right and fair that telecommunicators receive similar benefits. Technical and mental demands. The role requires high technical skills and emotional resilience. As telecommunicators age, a decline in these crucial skills can affect their effectiveness, necessitating a reconsideration of the standard retirement age. Recruitment and retention challenges. Our field faces significant recruitment and retention challenges exacerbated by the demanding nature of the job. Enhanced pension benefits would markedly improve our ability to attract and keep skilled telecommunicators. Risk to exposure. The daily high-stress environment and exposure to traumatic events makes this work particularly hazardous, impacting the long-term mental and physical health of our telecommunicators. I commend the Commission for considering a fiscal study to align the pension benefits of 911 telecommunicators with those of other public safety roles. They unequivocally deserve this recognition and support. Again, thank you for your attention to this vital issue. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Panconi. Up next, we have Seth Justice Loeffler Kemp, and on deck is Latonia Reeves, President of ASME Local 552 Probation and Parole Bargaining Unit in Hennepin County. If you can also make your way up to the table. Mr. Loeffler Kemp, if you can go ahead and begin. Identify yourself for the record and begin.
Seth Justice Loeffler Kemp, Duluth, Minnesota. Madam Chair, members of the Pensions and Retirement Commission, first, thank you for taking the time to discuss this important issue today. And my deep appreciation goes out to Doug Anderson, Amy Strengi, and the PERA Board of Trustees, who just earlier this month passed a unanimous decision to self-fund an actuarial study on this actual issue. 911 professionals across the state are eagerly awaiting the results of that study and the ramifications that will bring to the future of our profession. So thank you. My name is Seth Justice, and I serve my community as a 911 dispatcher up north with St. Louis County. I love my job. I truly love it. I started my career in dispatch 5 years ago, and I find it a real honor and a deep privilege to be with my neighbors during the most dire moments of distress, pain, and fear. It is intimate, and it is raw, and it is deeply human, what we do. It has forever changed the fabric of my soul. 911 dispatchers are the first responders. We provide life-saving efforts during the initial response to any and every crisis that can exist. From delivering a baby before the ambulance gets on scene, to administering Narcan, to de-escalating domestic situations or leading civilians through CPR or getting a neighbor off the edge of suicide. And when you think about it, 911 itself is a pretty strange phenomena. We are at 50 years of 911 existing here in Minnesota, but if you look at the history of our human civilization, that is a short amount of time. A short amount of time for us to request a small group of individuals to take in the immediate traumas and pains of their community in real time as they happen. We rely on these select few individuals to carry that heavy weight so that the rest of society can live in a little more bliss day to day. But those we are placing this task on deserve the dignity of a retirement and pension package that is commensurate with the task being asked of them. So the ask of you is actually quite simple compared to the work we do every day, performing some miracles and trying to save lives, day in and day out. In my case, night in and night out. I was working till about 4:30 this morning, so I'm running on a little sleep right now. Supporting these highly trained professionals is not only the right thing to do, it is highly overdue. It will also help address the recruitment and retention issues that plague 911 centers across the entire state. Furthermore, it would show that the state of Minnesota recognizes the significant and incredibly difficult work performed by these professionals, as well as the sacrifices that these public servants make for the betterment of their communities. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Is Latonia Reeves here? She's not, okay. So Ethan, okay. So let's go to Ebony DeLovely, St. Louis County Dispatch. And on deck, it is Wade Laszlo, President of Minnesota Correctional Officers Retirement Association. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Ebony DeLovely, and I'm a 911 dispatcher with St. Louis County. I've only been a dispatcher since August 22nd of 2020, so just shy of 2 years. In that time, I shed my fair share of tears, yet helped with some pretty miraculous saves on a human life. Prior to making the transition to dispatch, I worked full-time as a nationally registered paramedic, which I still do hold that certification. I have been part of the emergency response system since I turned 18, which has been about 7 years now. Not only have I seen some of the worst possible things happen to somebody, I've also heard it. I'm joining Seth today to bring another side of this, from coming to dispatch, from being out in the streets, literally saving lives, to saving those lives in a very different way. Bringing awareness to what dispatchers do and go through is something that I don't think many truly understand. I now understand that dispatchers are not just some voices on the phone or radio. We are real people and we care. I love being a dispatcher. I love being able to make a positive difference as I try my hardest to make a positive difference in every single person's life that I encounter, as well as leaving this world in a better place than what I entered into. This is just a small contribution to making that positive difference in not only my life as a dispatcher, but for dispatchers all around the state of Minnesota, because we do make a difference and we need to take care of each other. One shift that will always stick with me was a warm January day in 2023. I had just taken a call of a snowmobile accident up north, where response times were 30 minutes minimum for any police, fire, or EMS. A snowmobile had crashed into a tree, and the driver had suffered a cardiac arrest. I talked to his best friend through CPR for 12 minutes, until his friend told me that he wanted to stop because he was too far gone. I had asked if he could just continue so he could at least give his friend the best chance possible, and his friend just said no. I told him that I would stay on the phone with them until help got there, and he just told me all the memories of the two of them that they had for the rest of the 18 minutes. I disconnected when help arrived. The phone rang immediately, and I answered. This time, a son realized that his mom had stopped breathing while they were driving up from Michigan. I talked him through doing CPR on his mom in the front seat of the truck because he couldn't get her flat on the ground while help was on the way. I talked him through nearly 19 minutes of CPR, telling him how good he is doing, and I remember telling him to say to his mom, "Help is coming, and I love you." That broke me. Help arrived, I disconnected, wiped my tears, and carried on. Those were the first 2 calls of that shift walking into work that day. About halfway through the day, I took another call of an elderly male who was having a very hard time speaking and breathing. I heard him say his address, and he said, "Help, I'm sick and I can't move." I instantly knew what this was, that I was gonna be the last person to speak to him that day. I heard him take his last breaths, and I told him, "I have so much help coming to you. I love you, and it's okay." I told him I loved him because I knew what was about to happen, and that he needed to know that someone loved him and that someone cared. That's just one day from the time that I've been a dispatcher. There have been countless others. Now, it's not always those sad calls that we go through. We get a lot of very good ones. I just had a child call the other day telling me that's his birthday. I just told him, "Happy birthday." I don't think he realized he called 911. There was someone who called in to let us know that she had been sober for 30 days. And she didn't have anyone else to tell. I told her, "You go, girl, I am so proud of you." And just the other day, I saved a 7-month-old that was choking and not breathing. She is doing amazing, by the way, and she's the happiest baby ever. I put so much credit and gratitude towards those who have been doing this job for really any length of time, because this job does take a lot out of our coworkers, and to see the negative effect that it can have on them is absolutely heartbreaking. Not being able to physically respond to these calls anymore has been very difficult, but I now realize that I can make just as big of an impact on this side of the phone as I was to before. So with that, I am here before you today to show that this job is unlike anything else, and that we do make a difference while being the first responders. I urge you to support moving this into a pension group that better aligns with the life-saving role that we play. We are the golden glue that holds the emergency response system together. We are heard and not seen. We are dispatchers. Thank you so much for your time, Madam Chair, and the rest of the board.
Thank you, Ms. DeLovely. And we have Wade Laszlo, and then on deck is Matt Hilgard, and the last will be Matt Mossman. So if you all could just make your way up to the testifiers table. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
My name is Wade Laszlo. I'm president of the Minnesota Correctional Officers Retirement Association. I worked as the detention deputy in the Hennepin County Jail from 1990 to 2016 when I retired after 26 years, and I want to thank the commission for allowing me to testify here today. Why am I here? Well, because every time there's a bill to improve dispatch pensions, it seems to pivot to adding to the correctional plan. I'm one of the people that back in the 90s was part of that original group to get our pension going. I have the utmost respect for 911 dispatchers and the integral job that they have in the system. But it's apples and oranges when it comes to pensions. I was part of the Pension Commission's 911 Dispatch Telecommunications Pensions Benefits Working Group. I was an advisor to that group. And that group did not recommend adding dispatchers to our plan. Let me get my right sheet here, excuse me. The correctional plan was established in 1999 for correctional officers serving in county and regional and juvenile correctional facilities due to the physical nature of their jobs. The members of this plan are responsible for the security, custody, and control of the facilities and their inmates. 911 dispatchers are not responsible for security, custody, and control of facilities and inmates. There is no physical nature to their jobs. They are not assaulted, murdered, exposed to diseases from inmates on their jobs. During the pandemic, almost everybody in the Hennepin County Jail that I know was exposed at one time or another to the disease that was going around. I myself had a full-blown exposure to AIDS back in the 90s from an inmate. They're assaulted, they're hurt. It's a physical thing. I always told my wife I did not want to be 60 years old and wrestling with a 20-year-old in the Sally Port. I left at 57. It's a job that you physically cannot do, and it has physical dangers as well as the same stresses that the dispatchers are talking about. The PERA Correctional Plan is the healthiest of the plans. That's why we get a 2.5% COLA, which is higher than the other plans. And as all of you know on the commission, if the funding goes below 85% for 2 years, the COLA also drops. It's the best funded of the plans. We hear repeatedly they wish all the plans were funded like that. And there's an old term in Latin, a legal term that says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Adding people to the plan that don't fit it, to change the definition, would greatly harm the plan. Most of you should have seen the petitions that we garnered from all over the state. We got petitions from Freeborn County, Anoka County, Hennepin County, Olmsted County, Sherburne County, St. Louis County, Steele County, Washington County, and Wright County, all from detention deputies and corrections officers not wanting to add 911 dispatchers to our plan. And there was also a few thousand cards that went out that most of you should have seen. They came from McEwen. McEwen is not opposed to the legislature studying increased benefits for dispatch and probation. That's a good thing, and it's a good thing to look at, but we're opposed to adding them to our plan or being combined in the new plan with them. We worked hard to get the correctional plan. It's the best funded and has the healthiest COLAs. And if there is a working group, we do just also ask that all the stakeholders would be included in that working group. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Laszlo. And last, we have Matt Hilgert. Matt, if you can identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Matt Hilgart. I work for the Association of Minnesota Counties. AMC represents all of Minnesota's 87 counties. And Madam Chair, I do have about 4 pages of testimony that I'm going to try to consolidate a bit here. As you can see from our letters this session on various pension proposals, counties have largely focused their input this year on a few core principles on any pension change. And I would posit that these principles hold true to the issues that we'll be studying and assessing moving forward. First, plan enhancement should not compromise the funding status of any existing plan, and I would say this principle should also apply to any prospective plan addition and the need for it to be financially sound. Second, that increases to employee-requested enhancements should be equitable and considerate of needs across all generations of employees and pension members. And lastly, that there is employee-employer consent. Absent this, we foster an environment which increasingly turns public employers who have historically and continually supported the public pension system as backseat passengers. Similar to the power of this commission, which you sit on and have said eloquently so many times before about the bipartisan support it receives, we also think that that should apply to major structural changes to the pension plans to make sure that employer and employee groups are supportive. I also want to take a minute, Madam Chair, to just reflect on the intersection between this idea of total compensation package, intergenerational needs, and the thoughts that you've put out here. And I do appreciate the commission putting an item like this on the agenda. It's a big issue that will certainly garner more conversation in the years to come. In fact, AMC has had this as an agenda item for 2 of our board meetings even this year, talking about whether there is space for employers to be supportive or how we might support the future needs of 21st century public service. And that's the question which you're trying to get to, Madam Chair, and you eloquently said. No surprise, county employment does not have easy jobs. Today, we're hearing the stories of dispatchers. We also have child protection workers. We have public workers. We have snowplow drivers in St. Louis County. If you've ever driven a day with them in a blizzard or clearing the streets, that's not an easy job either. We have folks at Ponderosa Recycling Facility in Senator Frentz's district who are clearing solid waste debris and hit lithium batteries where there are explosions and fires and other hazards related to their health. A long way of saying that public service is not easy. So the question of what does public service in the 21st century look like is a fair question that we should be asking, but also one that opens doors. And that is one question that we do have for this group of what are the expectations for other employee groups that are equally hardworking, have also additional risks, whether they be physical or mental health throughout their career. The other thing that I wanted to just chat about is a compensation package, Madam Chair, and this is more just as a reference, because today we're talking about pensions. That is the jurisdiction of this committee, but I also don't want it to be lost upon us about the total compensation package and how counties have been responding to the needs of our employees. We are in a generational workforce shortage that is not abating. That's not unique to Minnesota. It's happening nationwide. The fields that you are listing here are the ones that are at the pinnacle of the toughest positions to fill. As such, counties have been responding responding by trying to adjust their compensation packages to be competitive with national fields as well as themselves. In the metro area, for example, a metro area county entry-level dispatcher can make anywhere between $65,000 and $85,000 for a more tenured position. In Ramsey County, the listings can go up to $74,000 with just a GED. They're also offering supplemental compensation package benefits that include things like free transportation packages, 457B plan supplements, 25 days vacation, which is with additional 3 weeks of sick time accrual, and their own version of a paid family leave plan before it was even mandated by last year's legislation. 3 weeks parental leave program, 100% wage replacement, which is much better and enhanced than the state's program that will kick in on January 1st of next year. These are all to go to show, to say that we should be doing these things. We are doing these things, and we are innovating. And I think that that compensation package should be also taken a look at when we're talking about pensions, because pensions is just one core component of a total compensation package. But the priorities of those compensation packages might change depending on who you're talking to and the age of that worker. So, Madam Chair, this is just the start of those conversations. I want to appreciate the foresight of this committee. We stand ready to participate in those conversations, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Mr. Hilgert. And our last testifier is Matt Mossman, Minnesota Inter-County Associations. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Matt Mossman with the Minnesota Inter-County Association. I also want to thank you for the opportunity to share some comments and your willingness really to engage all stakeholders in this discussion for their study. And really, Madam Chair, for your willingness to do that over quite a number of issues over the last couple of years. We really appreciate it. Mr. Hilgart emphasized the joint principles that we have consistently promoted to this commission for evaluating expanded and adjusted pension benefits over the course of the session. And before commenting directly on the approach that might be taken to actuarial and cost studies, I want to underscore and emphasize some of those points and encourage some additional interim discussion on some key policy questions. The first question I would ask the Commission to consider over the interim, and I just want to maybe pause and just acknowledge some of the really important and moving testimony by the providers and the public servants of the 911 telecommunicators in these roles at the front end. You know, all of the testimony and thinking about this, these are really incredible public servants, and all of the work and ideas that we hope the Commission will consider in evaluating whether or not to have expanded pension benefits is not an assessment of whether or not these are valuable employees relative to all of our employees. They are. This is incredible work that I wouldn't be willing to do, probably that many of you wouldn't be willing to do, and an incredible resource. And we want to just call out and note and value that, but we also want to make sure that we're addressing some practical ramifications for what it would mean to have an additional benefit set going forward. So the first question that I would really encourage would be, what is the function of pension benefits generally, and how different is the pension benefit component from other total compensation? This was talked about a little bit by Mr. Hilgart, but with the challenges of many public and private employers that have been faced to fill vacant positions in recent years, there's been a lot of talk at the Capitol around how best to meet and enhance benefits relative to recruitment and retention, and certainly pensions are part of that tool. But the reality is that the much more common compensation tools for responding to labor market ups and downs, particularly for recruiting new employees, is salary, pay, healthcare benefits, leave benefits, work location and flexibility, training and education benefits, and other tools to recruit and retain employees. It's important that we have robust and attractive compensation in the area of pensions as well. But we have to have a grounding and consistency with other states and as well with all across our employees as to why we have those differentiated benefits. What is the policy rationale then and criteria for differing pension benefits across different classes of employees? What are the criteria and job characteristics that will distinguish those who are eligible for this benefit set relative to other benefit sets? You've heard a bit of the flavor relative to that, both in the letters that have been provided today to the committee and the testimony. On the one hand, existing PERA Correctional Plan members point to the original underpinnings of the benefit set that's tied eligibility to the physical nature of the job for those benefits. And you've heard from 911 telecommunicators, who rightly point out the essential role of their work to public safety and the mental and emotional stress of that work. Those
Mr.
are all.
Mossman, can you wrap up?
I
your
will wrap up.
comments? Thank you.
So we have other employees who have those characteristics, and I just think it's important that we define that on the front end as we're evaluating costs. Finally, as you look at costs, I hope that there will be consideration of how disaggregating employees to different pension funds might affect pension stability, and also how those costs will be funded in partnership with the state over time. We know from previous rough assessments that they will be significant, and want to have that conversation on the front end as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mossman, and if you could just send those questions, if they haven't already been sent, just to our staff so that we have that as we have conversations in the interim. That would be greatly appreciated. And members, this is the point where I would ask for member discussion, but I do know that many of you have had discussions with me personally on this issue, and that we will have time in the interim to have these discussions. I think there was a lot that maybe we could all reflect on and process from what we heard today, and that this leads us into maybe our next item is the work that is going to be done in the interim. So with that, I'm going to actually move us to the last item of
Madam
our.
Chair?
Yes, Senator Seeberger.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I want to acknowledge the work of our 911 telecommunicators, and Ms. Canconi, I'm honored to consider you a constituent of mine. And I want everyone to know, it's not a job that I could do. And I think we do need to acknowledge the hard work that they do and find a place for them in our pension system. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Seeberger. That's an important comment.
Madam Chair.
Representative Wolgamott.
Well,
as long as you all are willing to stay a little bit after 10 o'clock, I'm totally fine with comments. So Representative Wolgamott.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. As the author of the bills that were considered today, I just wanted to echo Senator Seeberger's sentiments and particularly thank our testifiers who came forward today. Ms. Panconi, Mr. Loeffler-Kemp, and Ms. Swanson for sharing their insights on the truly unique job that our 911 telecommunicators have. They are the first responders. It's important that they have pension plans that reflect the hard work and sacrifice they do in keeping our community safe. So I just want to say thank you for hearing this legislation, having this conversation. Thank you to the testifiers for your hard work on this and for coming forward. And I want to make clear my commitment to this committee and to the stakeholders that we do need to continue to build this momentum and make sure that 911 telecommunicators have pension plans that reflect their crucial work in public safety. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Any other comments from our members? Thank you for that. And I think that this is really important to segue us into this next item because we do have a number of interim projects that we have put before the commission. You all should have a list in your folder, item 6 here. And what I'd like to do is just maybe ask Executive Director Linczewski to walk us through the list of projects, maybe a really high level of it. So Ms. Linczewski?
Yes, and actually I want to just focus in on 3 because I need your help for this one. So if you could just look at the interim project list there. Item number 3 is that our actuary's contract is up in January, and we cannot renew with him and the firm VIA again. We could renew, but we need to do an RFP. So that process requires a subcommittee of this commission, which could be the executive committee, the chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer, or it could include any of you, up to 7, so we don't have a public meeting and all of those things happening as well. So Chair Herr will request this, but please consider even today if you'd be willing to volunteer for this subcommittee to, it won't take a lot of work, but it will require some interviews with actuaries, which could be done via Zoom, and then a decision ultimately on which actuary we would continue with. So the other items on the interim project list are spelled out here is pretty simple. Two work groups. We've got the amortization work group, which is the directors, and we also have the MSRS correctional plan eligibility work group. That'll be with DHS and DOC commissioner delegates. So those will occur over the course of the summer and fall. We also have what had been on the agenda, the restructuring of the PERA survivor benefits. It's a recodification, and then also updating the assumptions for the combined service annuities. That won't require any input to speak of except a report down the road for the commission, and that could have some positive benefits for our pension plans. We continue to support the Secure Choice Board. There's no interim executive director there, so that is the job that staff has to do as well. And then if we have time, we would look again at the actuarial standards and look at updating those.
Thank you, Director Lynchesky. And I think just to remind the members, this year, right, what we all did, something very different last year was we put $100,000 away into our actuarial fund so that the commission itself could run numbers, and we were able to do that for Senator McEwen's bill, and we also did that for Representative Nadeau bill, and that it is really important that we have actuaries that can do this work for us, and so that is actually quite important for us if anybody can volunteer. And does anybody know today if they would be willing to volunteer for that item number 3? Senator Friends, okay. I think I'll probably very likely be a part of that as well. Senator Rasmussen as well, okay. Did I see Representative Nadeau's hand? All right, wonderful, Representative Nadeau as well. And if anybody should decide after this meeting that you'd like to do that, please reach out to me, and we'll make sure that staff has your information so that we can pull the group together. And that being said, any discussion on the interim projects? And I want to note that just because the 911 dispatcher is not on this list, it does not mean that we should not be working on that item number 5 that was before us around some of the new plans that we might be thinking of, or how people's work responsibilities have changed or shifted, that this is continuing work that we can continue to do together to really bring proposals forward. And so if there's any further discussion on these items, anybody, any hands up for discussion? No discussion, wonderful. Then please, as I said, those who might still be interested in any of these items, please let me know, but particularly for item number 3, as we need to get moving on that. We do have, actually, we have a testifier here to speak on this. It's Maggie Temple, a public school educator from Minnesota Teachers for Pension Reform here. And Ms. Temple, if you could identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maggie Temple, teacher, proud union member, grassroots organizer. Chair Her and esteemed LCPR members, thank you for your time today. I am a 30-year veteran teacher, and I represent a grassroots group of almost 20,000 members called Minnesota Educators for Pension Reform. I'm here today to ask for your help. Let me tell you why. For the past 2 legislative sessions, educators have written thousands of letters and emails, attended hearings and rallies, only to be told, sorry, we just don't have the money this year. And yet, St. Paul teachers, corrections officers, and firefighters have all seen improvement in their pensions. I don't begrudge them any of that. As members who serve Minnesota communities, they deserve it. The small improvement we got last year of an NRA reduction was the most expensive and the least helpful of all the proposals. And this session, Tier 2 teachers have actually had their pensions made worse. The amortization bill that's on the table only makes it more difficult to pass future pension reform. Let's be honest, does anyone really care if we are solvent 5 years earlier? Probably not, but it does provide a great excuse. We'd love to help you teachers, but you have unfunded liabilities. And speaking of those unfunded liabilities are not your fault. They are due to poor management on the part of TRA and of terrible past legislative decisions. It's time to fix it. It's time to fix it because it is unethical to saddle Tier 2 teachers with a debt we did not create. We are tired of being stuck with a bill in this very expensive game of dine and dash. We are more than exhausted from hearing a pension is a promise parroted by our governor, only to be forced into an increasingly difficult job because we can't afford to retire. Tier 2 teachers are propping up the entire pension system with our mandatory contributions, and it is wrong. We are so sick of this unjust system that we even raised $78,000 in 19 days to have this system investigated. That in itself should signal the breadth and depth of teacher anger. While these past decisions, legislative decisions, are not your fault, it is in your power to take the next right step and begin to correct these wrongs. I'm asking you today to create a Tier 2 pension task force as an accompaniment to the amortization bill. Please consider spending some time this summer looking over the MinRep restructure plan that was given to you by both Education Minnesota and by a small group of us who met with Chair Her this past February. Minnesota Educators for Pension Reform are absolutely bullseye focused on this, and we would love the opportunity to work with some of you this summer and to explore some solutions to fix the system. I thank you so much for your time, and I hope you'll contact me so we can set up a task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Temple. And I just want to direct the members that there are a number of submitted testimony related to teacher pensions, and that information is in your packet or being passed around. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for just another moment on the Tier 2 question, which is very important in all our districts. Ms. Temple, I want to thank you for coming forward and assure you that we talk about Tier 2 issues. The average state senator has, I think, 1,100 teachers in our district, and so rest assured we'll have it. I do want to call attention to the 78,000 in the investigation and share with you my concerns so that we can work together to try to find a solution. It's one thing to investigate and ask questions. It's quite another to suggest that there's been some type of mismanagement, improper fee, or conflict of interest. Served here 8 years, has never been suggested that SBI or TRA have done anything wrong. And I want to encourage your group to draw a line there. If there are allegations of impropriety, you should bring them forward to the LCPR and we should talk about them. If there are not, you should make sure that it's not implied, suggested, or hinted at by members of your group. It builds credibility for the Tier 2 teachers to work together, and I think that'll make it easier. Thanks, members, and thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Friends, for the comments. I do also want to state that I know that within a system in which there is a lot of demands, it may feel like decisions being made may be favoring one group versus another. But I want to be very clear that in the last 2 years, teachers have overwhelmingly received almost all of the benefits. This year, it has gone solely to teachers. And last year, a huge portion of what was targeted to our committee was given to teachers. And so I want to just maybe state that for the record, that it is not because I do not believe teachers do not deserve more, but I also want to be very clear that teachers have received overwhelmingly the largest portion of any allocation from both years and almost 100% from this year. And so with that said, I am going to just close out the discussion today with that. I am going to conclude business, that is the end of our business for today. And so members, this is our last meeting for the biennium. I just wanted to say a couple of really quick thank yous. I know you're all rushing to get out of here, but I want to just say thank you to Senator Friends for having been a fantastic vice chair to this committee. You have really supported me and allowed me to do this work in a way that really honors the fact that there are difficult decisions to be made, and that you have been at every meeting, and despite the fact that you are chairing other committees in the Senate, I never felt like this was not a priority for you. And so I just wanted to say thank you, how much I appreciate that. I also wanted to thank Lead O'Driscoll from the House side. You have been a fantastic partner. You have made every decision with me, discussed every options, looked for possible solutions when we didn't have any, and helped me think really critically through things I might not have been able to think through. And so I really just wanted to say thank you for the bipartisan support and your support throughout this work. And I also wanted to say special thank you to Representative Nelson, who this is probably your last regular pension meeting with the commission, and just to thank you for all of your years of service and the knowledge that you brought in doing this. There were many times that I relied on you to just provide historical information and data on how we got to where we are, and we will miss you absolutely from having you on this commission and the knowledge that you brought with you, and that I know that whatever you move on to next, that you will be hugely successful, whether it is being with family or providing support for other organizations that you've been maybe putting off since you've been doing work here. But just wanted to thank you for everything that you've done. I don't know if maybe at the end, if there's any few words you might want to say to the commission before we end this. And then I also just wanted to thank all of the members for making this such a priority for all of you, that meeting at 8:30 in the morning, especially for those of you who drive really far to be here, that commitment showed how important this work really is for our state and for all of the individuals impacted by pensions, and specifically Senator Nelson. I know you probably might have the longest drive, I think, to get here, or?
Well, an hour and 15, so other people have.
Maybe a little bit, okay, Senator Rasmussen maybe. All right, yeah. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate all of your commitment to this work. And then just lastly, to our staff, to our partisan staff, Nick Stumalanger, Ryan Majerus, John Bueller, our nonpartisan staff, Susan Lachesky, Sean Kelly, and Lisa Duslin. You all have been a fantastic team, and even though our partisan staff is called partisan staff, I've never worked with partisan staff who cared so much about ensuring that the other side of the aisle's voices were heard, that we were fair in the bills that we were bringing forward, and that we made sure that voices were brought to the table that might not otherwise be, maybe in other types of committees. And so I just wanted to say thank you to our staff for that. And then thank you to everybody who shows up for all of these meetings. I see some of you at every one of these commission meetings. And I just want to say that it is your voice and your presence that makes sure that we continue this work as a priority. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all of you for being here. And so this is our last scheduled commission meeting, but we will give you plenty of notice should we have to pull everybody together again for any other reason. And with that, I would just maybe let Representative Nelson, any last comments for your last commission hearing?
Thank you for the kind words.
All right, thank you all. Then, seeing no further business in front of this committee, this meeting is adjourned.